Hi everyone! So this is my last day of my April classes and unfortunately I forgot to press the record button, so I am going to refilm everything for all the students who did get the recording of this class. So today we are painting this lovely landscape. We will be doing exercises at first just to practice some of the techniques that you see in this painting, and I'm also going to go over the supplies that you'll be needing for this painting. And don't forget that I do offer discounts on all the supplies used in this painting. So for example, my brushes, they are this lovely brand called King Art, and you can get 10% off with my code ArtByBianca at checkout on kingartcode.com. And for my paints and paper, which are Art Philosophy, you'll get 15% off. So the code for that is also linked in the description here. It's Art by Bianca 15%, and you can use that at checkout on artphilosophy.com. So I'm going to go over the supplies. So we have two brushes. Today I'm using a premium size 12. It's a max round brush. And then I have a 1-inch premium aqua wash brush. So this is a really great brush for creating washes, and that's how I'll be creating my whole background as well as my water. So that's two brushes for this painting. That's all you really need. And then in terms of color, we have a few different ones. So from the Classics palette, we have two different colors. So I'm using the Opera Rose and the yellow that are included in that palette. And then I'm using two different colors that are included in the Currents palette. So remember that you can get 15% off both these palettes with my code ArtByBianca 15% at checkout on artphilosophy.com. And the colors are number 137 and number 143. So that's it for materials. The paper is also Art Philosophy. I've cut it to a 10 by 10 inch paper size, but this is actually the pad of paper that I used, and it works great for this type of painting. So before we start with our final painting, I'm just going to go over a few exercises that you'll need to practice before being able to master this whole painting. So this is my sheet for my final. I'm just going to set it aside, and I'll put this aside as well so that I don't dirty it, because I tend to dirty my paintings, you know, when they're close to me and I'm doing practices. That's usually when I'll make a mess. So I like to kind of clear my desk, move those aside, and just get started with a sheet of rough paper, which I have right here. And I'm just going to ask you to grab your pencil and just draw out a few simple squares. And in these squares, we will be practicing the techniques needed in this painting. Okay, and we'll actually maybe do one more. Now remember, you can always pause this video, so if I'm going too fast or you don't understand something, you can always pause and go back. That's the good thing about recorded classes. So I'm going to start with a wash. You could see I'm using water. It's not that clean, but that's okay. As most of you know who have joined my classes, I am quite a messy painter. So I don't really mind having water that's not perfectly clean. If anything, I think that it gives character to my work. So I'll just start by filling in one of the squares with a layer of water. Okay, make sure that your water is spread out evenly throughout this square, and make sure that you don't have puddles. So if you do have a puddle, it's very simple. All you have to do is grab a little piece of paper towel, something like this, and then you could gently absorb whatever excess water you have in your painting. Okay, so that's it. We've got our water ready. And when it comes to this painting, we have a few different colors for the sky. We've got this nice yellow, then I put in the pink, and then I go in with my ultramarine blue. So not the navy blue. The navy blue is for the end and for the mountains. And what I do is that, so normally I'll do this with my big brush, but this is a smaller surface, so I'm just going to use my round brush for this exercise. So what you want to do is start with your light colors. So the yellow goes up on top. I'm just going to put about 1/3 of my square in yellow. So something like this, perfect. And then clean my brush, so make sure you clean your brush in between each color. And now you want to go into your pink and apply your pink on the second half. Make sure your brush is clean or your color won't be so vibrant, okay? And you want to gently mix that into your yellow with a few simple strokes like this. Okay, that's good. And then clean your brush, go back into your last color, so the ultramarine blue, which will go in this area. And not too much, you want to really mix that with your pink. So in order to get a better mixture, what I like to do is that I usually tilt my painting. So I'm going to tilt it upwards, downwards, just to get some nice bleeds. You can also add a bit more pigment or water where needed. So let's say I add a little bit more water here, so I'm just putting a few dots, and this will allow the pigment to move a little more freely on my paper. Okay, giving you nice blends. You see how the colors are starting to really bleed together and look beautiful. And you can always go back in while it's wet and add a little more pigment where you need it. So I'm just going to put a bit more pink here because I do want it to turn into a nice purple. So the way to do that is that you do need enough of your pink and blue so that they mix together. Okay, and then you just want to play with the direction in which you hold your paper so that the colors really get to flow and blend nicely together. So I'll usually do this for a few seconds until I'm satisfied with what it looks like. And don't forget that you don't have full control over the way your painting dries, okay? That's really up to the watercolors and all of that. So I like to not put too much pressure on myself and just accept the way it looks now and let it dry. Whatever happens, happens, and it's part of the painting, okay? So this is probably the most difficult aspect of this painting, okay? It's really this part, and of course we have the exact same thing going on in the bottom section of our painting. So we've got like a reflection. It's pretty much the same colors over again. So we've got pink, yellow, and then we've got our ultramarine blue. And then here I mixed in a little bit of pink with dark blue to get like some really nice dark shades down here. And up here I used my navy blue, so this one, 143, to create the mountains. And of course I'll get into that later, but basically this is done on a fully dry background. So you do have to make sure that your washes on both ends are fully dry before you go in and add your mountains. Okay, as for the reflection, you could see that there was some bleeding. And the reason for that is because my water was still pretty damp here, which I knew very well, but I still decided to go in and add my mountains because I did want some of that like bleeding effect in the water, okay? So two different techniques. Of course, we'll be going over everything, and for now, I just need you to practice this. We'll do another one or two maybe, and then we'll be good to go with the mountains. And yeah, that's it. And don't forget that if you have questions, when you're watching this, you can always leave me a comment under this video, or you can also email me. My email is biancarosendesign@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. All right, so you could see that it's now fully dry. I'm touching it just to make sure. Totally dry, and you could see that the bleed is just so beautiful. This is exactly the effect that we're going for when it comes to our sky and our water. So we're going to practice that another time. The reason I'm doing it again is because I want to show you that each time I do this, I have no expectations and the result will always be different, okay? So I want you to keep that in mind, that every time you do this, it's going to look different. So you should not have expectations. That's how you mess up. When you have expectations, you end up just having this thought that something's going to turn out a certain way and then it doesn't, and you get disappointed. So the way I like to work is that I just paint, and in my mind, I've set it to whatever happens, happens with this watercolor. It's this gorgeous loose medium, and I just want it to spread on my paper and do as it pleases. So with that said, let's get started on the second one. So it's the exact same thing. I'm just taking my large brush this time, and let's do it with the large brush because we will be using this flat brush for the final painting, and I do want you to kind of understand how to use it. So same thing, we're starting with a layer of water. Okay, I'm going in directly with my yellow first. So yellow, I will apply some of that here. Then I'll go in with my pink, just as we did before, right? So we're kind of gently mixing it with the yellow, not too much, because I will let the paints mix by themselves as I tilt the paper. So blue, pink, yellow, and then like I mentioned before, I do want to mix the pink and the blue just a little bit, so I'm going to just help them mix a little bit here just by mixing them myself a little bit. Okay, and then same as we did before, you just want to tilt your paper up and down, and you can already notice how this one is turning out different to this one, right? So that's part of the beauty of this medium, and I know I repeat that a lot, but it's really important to understand that you don't have full control, especially when you're doing something loose like this. So this one has more pink up here. We've got a bit of a puddle, which I will leave, but you know, you could always, if it bothers you, and because like sometimes this will create a different type of bleed that you don't necessarily want, so you can always absorb, like I showed you previously, with just a bit of paper towel, like that, and that's it. Okay, just gonna let this dry, and we'll see how it turns out afterwards. In the meantime, I do want to practice the mountains. So, as I mentioned, the mountains are a second layer, which will go on top of our sky once the sky is fully dry. As for the water, we will add that, you know, I mean the reflection of the mountain in the water, we will add that when the paper is still a little bit damp. Don't worry though, if yours has dried, because I know this is very sensitive, so you got to do it fast. And if you don't, and your water has dried, you know, just keep note that if you add your layer, it'll turn out like this. So you won't get the bleeds, but it will still be beautiful, okay? What I do recommend is just using a little less blue here so that it's more, it blends in more with the lake, okay? But we will get into that with our exercises. So for now, I just want to practice the mountains with you. So we're gonna take this as our main example, and I'm just going to show you how to do this. So let's say this is our sky up here and this is our water. So this is our center line, something like this. And our mountain will look something like this. So it starts up here, goes kind of down, and then back up. Okay, so this is the layout for our painting. And the only thing you have to do at this point is just add in your pigment. So sometimes you'll hear me use the word color, because to me this is basically like coloring with a paintbrush. So I'm kind of just filling this whole area in with this blue, and I will also add in a little pink while it's wet, because I do want a bit of purple in here, just like we have in the sky. I want to repeat that. So I've just added a little bit of pink into the mountain here and letting that bleed together. Okay, you'll also notice in my final painting what I did here was kind of dab with some paper towel here, kind of to remove some of the color. I wanted it to be a little bit more transparent, so what I did when it was wet was that I took little pieces like this of paper towel and just gently dab, okay, making sure that the main line I kept, you know, fully dark. I didn't want to remove this part because I wanted this to be very obvious in my painting. So, you know, little piece of paper towel and just do this gently where you feel like it. Okay, you don't have to do exactly what I'll be doing in my painting. I do want you to also trust your gut feeling as you're doing this. So you can look at what I'm doing and, you know, get inspired. So what I'd like to do is gently just dab in a few places. So I'm not going to do this everywhere. Mostly I liked it here, like the extremes of the mountain. So just a little bit here and a little bit there, and you'll see how it got much lighter, right, in those places. Obviously, it's harder to do this on a small surface like this because you have to be very delicate and have a very small piece of paper towel, I mean. But when we do get on the larger surface, it will be easier to just kind of dab like this as we go. Okay, with that said, we're going to practice the mountain on this one because this one's pretty dry. I did also notice that this is kind of drying funny, and I think that's because my watercolor paper is a little bit old. So sometimes when they're old, they can do stuff like this, okay? I'm not going to focus too much on it. It's okay. I'll just accept it as it is, as part of the painting. But I did want to mention that in case some of you were wondering why this is drying a little bit funny. Okay, so for this, we're imagining that this is our sky now, so our mountain will be down here, right? So center line will be something like this. And going into my dark blue, I'll create the same type of line as I did before for the mountain. So it goes up, then down, and then back up, okay? Same thing, I'm just going to color this in. Okay, and then go into my pink. Just put a little bit of pink for that nice purple color that we're looking for. You don't have to put this all over your mountain. It's okay to just put this on certain areas. So I like to keep it, low to the horizon. So that's where I'm putting my pink. The rest I'll keep blue and just let it flow. Okay, then back to our paper towel. We want to remove just a little bit of this pigment so that we get that transparency that I liked so much in the first painting. So paper towel, just gently dabbing some of this color off. Same thing on the other side. Okay, and if you want more to come off, what you can also do is put a little bit of water. So this is a clean brush now with just some water, and then you can dab again. And you'll notice that more pigment comes off when you do this. Okay, so this is what I have for this one. You'll notice, as I mentioned before, they'll always be totally different. It's never the same thing twice. And that's it. So feel free to practice this a little bit more. And of course, if you have questions while you do this, don't be shy. You can always leave a comment under this video, or you could send me an email. Really don't be shy because I love helping out. You could also send me your pictures. And you can also share your final results on my Facebook group. So feel free to join that. It's called Watercolor Classes for Beginners with Bianca Rosen. And in that group, I will, I'll share all the classes, upcoming classes, discount codes I have, giveaways sometimes, and all sorts of things. Okay, and students can share all their work there. They can get feedback from other students and from myself, and it's just a really fun place to be, especially if you're wanting to learn more about watercolors. So I hope to see you in my Facebook group. And that's it. We're going to get started with our final painting shortly. All right, let's do one more exercise where we focus on the reflection in the water because I do want to practice this with you. This part is fairly easy, as you already saw in our exercise, but let's just do one more. So this time I want you to imagine the reflection of the water. We're going to start the same way we did with the other backgrounds. Okay, and for my reflection, I have a few colors. So I'm just looking at my painting and scanning. So I can see that I have put yellow, pink, more yellow, and then my blue. So let's do that. So we have a bit of yellow up here. I'll clean my brush. Then I'll go in with my pink. Okay, and once I'm done, I'll go back into my yellow, just a little bit of yellow here. And you could see all these puddles, right? So that's not really good. We do want to get rid of those because they're just going to end up messing up our background a little bit. So we want the water to be consistent, as I've mentioned before, throughout the square here. And then we're just going to continue with our last few colors. We've got blue here, and we have a bit of our dark blue. So there's just like a mix in the water of different colors, dark blue. And I've also put a bit of pink in there like I did in the sky to get that nice purpley color. that I like so much. Okay, and then from there you just want to move it around again. You can see a lot of puddles here, so I will get rid of these because they're just kind of making the colors go a little too crazy, and I want to have a little bit more control. So in order to have more control, you got to get rid of the puddles. Okay, so now when I move, you see now when I tilt, I've got more control. It's not going too crazy with the colors. I can kind of see what's going on. Perfect. So I'm just tilting a little more upward. I'll do this way also, and you can see the blue is really spreading nicely when I do that. And that's it for the water. So this is what it looks like. The next step, of course, is to add our mountains. So in this case, it's still pretty wet. On my original painting, I had waited for it to dry a little bit. So I'll still show you how to do this because I think it's important, and we will be doing this on the final painting as well. So I took my blue, and I just want you to imagine like the reflection of this. So it would look something like the opposite, right? So it would look something like this. I want you to imagine the opposite. So this is basically what we are going to paint up here, right? This is our water, and it starts up here. So I'm just going to be painting the reflection here to show you how I do it. And in our final painting, the reason I'm leaving white here is because that is actually part of our yellow background, and I want that to stay yellow. So I only want the reflection of the mountain to start after a little tiny piece of yellow. Okay, so I'm going to start around here, that means. And I'll just start with a line as my base to know where I'm headed. And then from there, you can kind of draw this out to help you, to give you a guide. And from there, I color in as I did before, same thing. So just color it in. And put as much color as you feel you need. You know, if you want it to be a little bit darker, you could put a bit more. I'm actually mixing both blues in this because I like the effect that both of them give me. So I'll put a bit of both. And that's it. From here, I'll just let it dry. You could see how it's spreading really, really nicely, and it's starting to look like a reflection, right? So that's the effect we're looking for. This is called wet on wet, and that's what I'll be using to create the reflection here. So feel free to practice that, and once you're done, you can grab your sheet of, final sheet of paper, and we are going to get started with our final painting. Okay, so I'm going to start by dividing this into two sections. So for the upper part with the mountains, I kind of want it to end here. So you could do this with your brush, just add a quick line so you know where your mountains should go. Okay, you could also do this with a pencil if you want, it's whatever you prefer. And then I'll gently go in with my water, and look how quickly I'm doing this. So I'm applying lots of water on the very top because I do want this to spread nicely. Okay, and I actually do recommend doing this with a pencil because, as you can see, my paper is a little bit old, so it's not reacting as it should with the paint right now. So it's leaving this kind of hard, harsh line, which we will cover with our mountain, but I did want to mention that just so you understand what's going on. First, I go in with my yellow as we did in our exercise, so we want quite a bit of that really nice vibrant yellow. Then I clean my brush. Next, I'll go into my pink. Make sure it's clean, so I have a bit of blue in there, so I'm just going to clean that out. And then go in with my pink. Get a substantial amount of pink onto there. Okay, and we will be moving it around to get those colors to spread nicely as we did in our exercises. Okay, and then the last color is our vibrant blue or royal blue. Okay, we can start tilting now because it looks like there's quite a bit of water, and I just want to get the colors flowing together. Okay, so let's tilt a little this way, a little this way. Okay, we're getting some really nice bleeds when we do this. And you can see how the colors move around the paper really, really nicely. Okay, I'm gonna add a little bit of pink because I do want that purple color that I was talking about before. Okay, that looks good. And a little more tilting just to get this to really blend in. Okay, that's it for now. This looks really good, so I'm just gonna let this dry, and you do the same, and then we'll focus on our water and our mountain and all of that. All right, we're gonna continue now with the bottom part, which is our lake, which is what we did here. So let's start. Basically what I need you to do is to skip a little piece. So you could either take your pencil or do this visually. So you see what I'm doing? I'm just drawing out a very thin line with my pencil, and I'm not going to pass that. So I want a little space of white to show in my final painting, right? So I'm just gonna keep that line as my border. And then as we did before in our exercise, we've got yellow, pink, a bit more yellow in this one, and then blue, and then a bit more pink, okay? So I'm gonna show you exactly where each color goes and how to place them, so just follow along. I'm gonna start with my large brush, and same as I did before, I'm just gonna apply a full layer of this water, which represents the lake. Okay, and you're gonna go all the way down to the bottom of your paper. And that looks good. Make sure that there's enough water so that once you place your colors, they spread really nicely together. So as I mentioned, we're going to start with yellow up here, then clean your brush. Next is pink. So pink will go somewhere here like this. Okay, clean your brush again, and now we'll put some yellow, but just a little bit. We want it to be fairly light here. So we're looking for some more transparency here in the lake. And then finally, we could go in with our blue. And you see how quickly I do this. So I want you to do this just as fast. So we're not focusing on detail. We're just doing this quickly. And whatever happens, happens. So like I dropped my paint here, so it left a little mark. But that's fine. I'll just fill that in with a bit more color. And everything will spread really nicely. Okay, I'm going to actually go in and add more yellow here just because it kind of faded away as I was doing this. And lastly, at the bottom, there's a lot of dark blue. So I'm just gonna add from my dark blue, the 143 now, just putting a bit of that, a bit more of the 137 here. Okay, and a little bit of the pink so that we get our nice purple color that we love so much. And then of course, let's get these colors to bleed a little bit, right? So to bleed, we're just going to do the same thing that I showed you before. Careful, we have a big blue puddle here. So as you can see, it's like really going up quickly. We can either remove that with some paper towel like this, or you could just leave it, whatever you prefer. Okay, I'm actually going to go in with a little more water just to get the colors flowing a little bit more. Okay, make sure to clean your brush, otherwise you'll get this, right? And it's not such a big deal because we do want our colors to flow together at the end of the day. Okay, and I got a little bit of a splatter here, so we're just going to ignore that. Okay, mixing our colors together, so tilt your paper so that everything bleeds nicely. And we can actually start with our mountain now. So the top part is fully dry, so let's do that. Okay, so it's like we did in this exercise here. Same thing, we are going to grab our dark blue. And if I really wanted to hide this, you know, I could make like a big mountain. So maybe I'll just do that for fun. So we can make a big mountain kind of going down like this. Okay, so there's always a way to fix something. If you made a little mistake or something, there's always a way to fix that. So that's what I wanted to show you by doing this. And then of course we go in, we can color everything in terms of this mountain here. Okay, and now we can play a little bit more with the colors. So let's go in with some pink. This time I'm using my smaller brush just so that I have a bit more control over the color. Okay, I'll go in with a bit more blue to get a really nice deep purple that I love. And I'm just gonna mix this a little bit by tilting my paper ever so slightly. Okay, the color is looking really, really great, very deep and rich. And of course, if we want that transparency in our background, we just have to grab some paper towel and gently dab wherever you want that transparency. Okay, it doesn't have to be everywhere. You can focus on little areas like I'm doing. This looks really good, so I love this. I'm probably gonna leave it as is because I really like this effect a lot. And the way the colors are spreading, very, very nice. Okay, and the reason I did this first was because I did want to wait for the water to dry just a little bit more. It's a little bit too wet still. So in order for it to spread just delicately and not go crazy like it did here, you do have to wait for it to be a little bit more dry. So I'm just going to let this dry for a little bit, and then we'll be back to finish the rest. Okay, I've waited and it's a little bit more dry. You could still see that it's kind of damp. It shines a little bit in the light, that's how you know. But it's perfect. I do want it to spread a little bit for this painting, so I'm going to go back in with my dark blue, so the 143. Not too much this time, so please test it out on your rough paper. You want it to be slightly transparent. So have, you know, more water than blue, I'd say, but don't have too much water, because if you do, you will get some really crazy bleeds, which is not such a bad thing. Okay, and now we're doing the opposite, right? So we need the mountain to go the opposite way. Don't forget we want some of this yellow to show. So I'm going to start by kind of getting that shape, right? And then filling this in with some blue. And I want some of that yellow to show, so I won't paint all of it. And we want a bit more bleed, so I'm going in with more blue, as you can see now. Really coloring it in kind of in a messy manner because I want it to get kind of foggy and wavy. Okay, this is looking really good. Love this, actually. Really love the way it's starting to spread. It's looking really pretty. So that's it. I'm going to stop here. You have to trust your gut feeling when you're doing this style of painting because things move really, really fast. So this looks good. Obviously it's a little bit different to my final, but that's because of the little splash I had there. But I did that just to show you that you can always fix a mistake, right? Nothing is really ever a mistake. There's always a solution. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned a lot. If you have questions, please don't be shy to ask me. You can always email me. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube because I will be coming out with more videos in the very close future. Bye for now.